120 episodes of the Athletes Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This is another doozy coming at you hot on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you're consuming content. We appreciate you joining us for another episode featuring Connor Emeny, who's an ultra-marathon Ironman, essentially high-performance human being, does whatever he really wants to, travels around continents, running around, biking, I should say. Cycling.
It's an interesting world record he's going for here.
Crazy.
Yep.
We dive into it during the episode. I just love the fact that we get to have these kind of conversations with people and learn what goes into their minds as they're trying to accomplish these crazy feats.
Yeah, for sure. I think like these ones, especially with, when we bring on Ironman or ultra marathon runners or people like that, it's a lot more about like the mindset of what goes on in terms of like these things last 12 plus hours. Like what the hell are you thinking about after hour 6 that keeps you going or, keeps you motivated to do this? I feel like that's just where it's really difficult and where we get a little bit of a difference compared to, athletes who are in team sports or have those sports that either have a time limit to them. It's a different mindset. It's cool to talk about.
Yeah, who also possesses a pretty incredible mindset and who we have to talk about is Hayley Wickenheiser, who's promoting her new documentary that's going to drop called The Wick. For those who don't know, she's got her medical PhD, 4-time Olympic gold medalist, all-time leader for Canada in goals with 168, assists with 211, and points 379.
And if you don't know, there's a problem.
Yeah, most people know who Hayley Wickenheiser is. Legit, an incredible human being. Played in 02-03 with the Finnish Men's Hockey League. Like, you name it, she's done it in the hockey world. And I am looking forward to watching this documentary, seeing what they put out.
I mean, when talking about women's hockey, we grew up watching Hayley Wickenheiser, right? She's got, like you said, 4 Olympic gold medals. When you thought of the Canadian women's hockey team, that's who you thought of, right? I mean, now it's obviously starting to change. But like she's had an incredible run, and on top of that, also getting her doctorate. It'll be a really interesting documentary. I'm excited to watch it. Yeah,
we just finished up the Tiger doc, and I'm sure this one's going to be just as good.
It's a lot of those coming out, in COVID. Like Michael Jordan's came out, Tiger Woods came out. I think I'm pretty sure Cristiano Ronaldo has one or is coming out with one. But yeah,
more people for time to reflect.
Conor McGregor's got one too. I know that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, Justin Bieber's got one. You've watched like a couple times, right?
He's got a couple of them. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I know he's got like 2 or 3.
Okay, we won't talk about Justin Bieber, but we will talk about Connor Bedard, 50 goals plus now on the season.
It's like 16 years old.
Yeah, ridiculous.
That's unbelievable. Youngest player ever to reach 50.
Points. He's pacing above Connor Mcdave.
Will he be better than Connor Mcdave in the NHL? That's
tough to say. There's a lot of time between now and then, right?
Yeah.
I think whatever team that ends up drafting him is going to be pretty lucky, to say the least.
It's really interesting though. Like, you got Connor Mcdave and I guess Draisaitl, who usually have led the NHL in points for the past 2 or 3 years, and Matthews, who's leading it in goals, although neither one of those players, I'm pretty sure, have a playoff series win. I know it's a team sport. It's just weird to think about. They always are top 3 in either goals scored or points. It just, now I think Edmonton fans and Leafs fans, they're like, I don't care. I just want to see us get to the second round.
Yeah, I think in any team sport, you realize that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you don't generate the results.
Yeah. I mean, like, for example, Tom Brady, he doesn't really lead the stats as a quarterback throughout the season. But you have faith, like every other year, I think he's on track for that he wins the Super Bowl. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. You kind of care more about the whole team aspect of side of things over the player individual.
I'm just excited for playoff hockey to start. It's the best time of year. Playoff basketball is underway. Raps are down 0-2, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you know what? I don't think Shaq's right. I think we're going to get at least one dub. Scotty Barnes is coming back.
Well, we're playing in Toronto tonight, so
exactly.
They got the crowd behind them.
This episode goes out tomorrow, that being Thursday, so we'll know at least whether there's one victory under the Raps belt or whether they'll be down.
Are they winning tonight, or is it going to be game 4?
If Scotty plays tonight, they will win.
All
yes,
right.
That crowd's going to be absolutely electric. the 76ers aren't going to know what hit them from a volume standpoint inside
True.
Scotiabank Arena.
Very true.
You know what else is happening? It's the Boston Marathon. Pretty crazy results. Perez Jepchicher, I apologize if I say the name incorrectly, finished with a time of 2 hours, 21 minutes and 2 seconds.
I have to say one time, like, it was just a treadmill I ran, like, the equivalent of a half marathon, and it took me just above 2 hours. I don't know how someone does a full 42 kilometers or something in 2 hours and 21 minutes.
Yeah, all of our American guests are going to be like, what's a kilometer?
Yeah, well, metric system. They probably want to learn it. So, yeah, no, she's won. We're reading in the past 8 months, she's won in the Olympic Marathon, Boston Marathon, and New York City Marathon. Unbelievable. She's killing it. And also, they mentioned this year was the 50th year in the Boston Marathon where the women participated and got to run in it.
Yeah.
Really exciting.
I think that, like, to top it off, we've been talking about female sports, female involvement within the athletic space, and I think this is another place where, you know, we've got to amplify these wins. And, you know, it frankly took probably a couple hundred, or however long the Boston Marathon's been going on, it took X amount of time minus the 50 years.
Now they're dominating, and we're just bringing light to it. So
exactly, that's what we do here on the Athletes Podcast: educate, entertain, and inspire that next gen.
Yep. I gotta ask you though, in terms, because we do have an Ironman runner on today. Mm-hmm. You and I have gone through running in the past. How do you find, like, those long distance? What can you think of doing, like, not only a full 42 kilometer or 6 mile run, on top of that adding the biking and swimming side of it?
Yeah, not my specialty. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, it was a struggle.
I'm a short distance runner, high speed, kind of like a train that doesn't have a whole lot.
You'd rather be doing a lot of 40-yard dashes than
Yeah, I'm probably better off in the 100 meter, 200 meter length, just because, you know, I got long legs, so I can get up to speed. Takes me a while to get there. I also am, like, you know,
explosiveness needs some work.
Oh, not even the explosiveness. It's just that I'm, you know, after that 200, I could stretch it to like an 800 meter mark, but after that, I'm gassed. Like,
it's done. It's
over. We're throwing in everything, throwing the kitchen sink at it. But before that, I'll just preface a 40. I'm not good at that. The acceleration needs some time. So sweet spot 100, 200 meter probably would be best. But what Connor's doing with these individuals who are competing in Ironmans are doing on a monthly basis is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think it was back episode 40 or 50 that Kuvi joined the show, and he was doing an Ironman, and we learned a bit about it there. But man, not something that I could see myself doing right now, but in the future, maybe. I'm sure we get coerced into doing things at times. And
it's also, like, really interesting when these athletes have these type of goals. Like when I was discussing the world record for Connor's, it was becoming the youngest athlete ever to run an Ironman in each different continent, which is like a pretty interesting record to begin with. But, you know, it goes, I remember when you were discussing with him on the podcast, what I really wanted to know was most interesting to me is just the conditions in each continent, how that would change in terms of the running, the swimming, and the biking. Like, obviously, you know, in North America, he could be running in a place where it's a lot colder weather compared to that of Asia, where it'd be super hot. So it was just that's what I was most interested in learning, was just about the different conditions and different continents, the different types of struggles he had. So that's what I thought was super interesting about this podcast.
Now that we know what Jordan's favorite part is, we'd love to know what your folks' favorite part is of the show, specifically this episode and all the others. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe. Let us know what you'd like to see more of. Here's episode 120 featuring Connor Emeny. Here we go. Episode 117 of the Athletes Podcast featuring Connor Emeny, a future 7-time Ironman participant. Can you maybe start off by just explaining what the heck this goal is that you're trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my current goal right now is to become the youngest person to complete an Ironman triathlon on every continent. So the current record is 31 years old. I'm currently 25 and have completed 5. And my next one is coming up pretty quick in Brazil. So that's in May. And then the journey will be done, and see how it goes.
Dude, that's crazy. Just wrapping your head around a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike, 42.2 kilometer run, 6 separate times on 6 separate continents, 5 down, 1 to go. Can you explain what made you try and do this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it kind of stemmed from first year university. Like many people, you kind of try a lot of different clubs, different teams, see what's out there. And the story goes, me and 2 buddies were like, let's just do this triathlon club for fun, the tryout. Like we had a kind of a free weekend. And the issue was when we did this tryout, one of my buddies couldn't swim, didn't make it past the swim test. The other one, his bike tire popped on the bike tryout. So I was the only one that ended up crossing the line, ended up making the team. And I was like, wow, that's quite fun. I had a really good time with that. Like I like the change up of 3 disciplines. And then a guy I ended up racing head to head with named Ben Rudson went off and did this otherworldly feat to me, which was the Ironman, and came 14th at Kona, which is the world stage for our age group. And I kind of just got this kind of crazy itch to do something similar. And so I sent him a text and was like, hey man, like, thanks for the inspo. If you can do it, I can do it. I'm coming for you. And by 2020, I'm going to do my first one. So yeah, it was just really like this kind of wild story of let's just try something new, and then kind of gravitated towards it, and saw somebody do it and thought like, that's so crazy. I got to give it a try.
What was your athletic background prior to jumping into this?
Yeah, I grew up in Toronto, 2 older brothers, but kind of tried, every sport you can think of, from soccer to hockey to the local badminton team to ping pong club. But I guess primary was hockey. Grew up playing competitive hockey. And then a lot of the guys I played with just through school were always like, pretty solid players, end up getting drafted to the NHL. And now some of them are playing in the NHL. So I've always been around kind of those elite kind of athletes of just the top of their game. And I think through that and through osmosis, being around people like that, kind of had that like extra competitive mindset when it came to sports.
You want to give any of those guys a little bump? Like, you don't want to, you're just going to be humble and not mention any of their names?
Well, yeah. I mean, like across hockey and just some of the guys I went to school with, like a few of them are now in the NHL. I think Jake Evans is playing on Montreal Canadiens. He went to St. Mike's. Max Domi went through our school program.
St. Mike's is pretty legit, eh? You guys consistently just pour out athletes. It's crazy.
Yeah. They're a lot of top level kind of hockey players came into that school, but across disciplines, like a guy I did cross country with and was in my grade 10 gym class is Justin Knight. And now he's, came 7th at the 5K Olympics in past Tokyo Olympics year, and kind of set national records for Canada in terms of fitness. So it breeds like some good level athletes, but just kind of, I guess through being around that, I always kind of wanted to see what I was capable of.
Yeah, obviously you had a desire to achieve that next level. What, obviously in 2022 now, you've been doing this for only 2 years. Like, at what pace are you doing them? How are you able to sustain like your body weight, not becoming super frail and fragile? Like, you must be consuming a ton of calories to be able to pour out this kind of output on a consistent basis, month over month. Like, give me some insight here. We always like to dive into this stuff.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I guess, after the first one, I moved to New Zealand. I trained up to it for 6 months, but I never had formal training or really any mentorship or guidance. Like I YouTubed how to swim. I just kind of like bootstrapped my way and kind of learned through failing, learned through doing. But I guess before, like I kind of got mentally tough or just like able to kind of get through this mental hurdle of endurance sports, I had this opportunity to crew this guy, John Pockler, on a 900 kilometer run across the Bruce Trail, which is Canada's oldest and longest marked footpath, to create a record for the fastest time to do it. So this guy ran 900 kilometers in 9 days, 17 hours and 2 minutes. And witnessing that firsthand, he was running pretty much 100 kilometers a day for 9 days, was otherworldly to me. And I learned so much about nutrition, sleep, how to kind of get through like tough points. But if anything, it was just like he believed it and then he achieved it, and I think like that's the hardest part for a lot of people with whatever they do, is like they don't believe themselves are capable of doing whatever the feat is. And then it's not until you witness somebody do something crazy firsthand that you kind of get motivated to do something similar, maybe not to the same extent, but something that's a bit past what you're capable of. So that was kind of go ahead.
No, it's crazy. I just had a very similar experience. I don't know if you are a fan or listen to Joe Rogan, but he just had on Mr. Beast, and I am so motivated at this current state with what he was able to build on YouTube. And I just think that the possibilities are endless if you have the right people in place. And that's the hardest thing, is surrounding yourself with the appropriate people to get the job done or what you're looking to accomplish. And man, I feel on a very similar wavelength to you right now. And it's funny, I'm drawing similarities as I'm going through and doing research for this pod. We both have a bit of the corporate life. While you were working, you went down to Oz while you were working for Uber's, I guess, Jump is the new term for it down there. But like, how were you able to balance training, working full time on top of, social life? I'm assuming you were trying to do other things outside of just run and work.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, for your Mr. Beast kind of analogy there, right? He started when he was 11, didn't really know. He was kind of this quirky guy. Like nobody thought he would be, this YouTube kind of influencer. But what he talked about was like hyper focus and just like putting in countless hours and 10,000 hours to get good at anything. He did 50,000 hours between the time he was 11 and 21. And now he's like, paying dividends on that. But the same mentality kind of applied to me of like, I made a lot of sacrifices in terms of, outings and friendships, and I'm still a very social guy, but previous, like I worked for a beer company and, I was very much prioritizing like going out, socializing with people, but then I'd be waking up hungover and swimming in the pool. And it's like, at a certain point, you question like what you're doing and what's important to you. So I think like anything, having a hyper focus of what you want to achieve and being like intentional with your time is kind of like what separated me. But in terms of like just going after it, I after working for the beer company, I joined Uber after graduating, and then I just had this itch to do this race. So I moved out to New Zealand and joined Jump there, but I took on pretty much shift work, working out this startup from 5 a.m. till 1 p.m. every day, and then would go home, take a nap, and train. So we had to get the scooters out into the city before people started work with like public policy to make sure it's all good, go home, take a nap, train. And it was very much this grind of like, I'm not drinking, I'm not socializing, but I was like 6 months, just commit to your goal and then reevaluate after that.
I love that. So many people could benefit from 6 months of head down hard work, and they'd be shocked at what the results can see, myself included, I'll be honest. I one of the things that I liked, it was a quote, I can't remember where I saw it, but you posted establishing goals within goals. Could you elaborate on that? Because I'm not super familiar with it, but I think it could be useful.
Sure. Yeah, to me, I think, somebody once said like, how do you eat an elephant? And it's like one bite at a time. And there's different kind of frames of this. It's like when if you think you're trying to climb a mountain, don't look at the mountain, look at the first step in front of you to get there. And I think establishing goals within a goals is so important in like a race, an Ironman. It's, average time to complete an Ironman is 13 and a half hours. And instead of going out hard, you kind of don't think about it as one giant race. It's 3 races within one race. And then you focus on your swim. It's just like kind of getting as granular as you can of like, let's get to the first buoy, the first checkpoint. That's a win. Celebrate those small wins or those small goals within the larger goal. And that just kind of like reinforces your stride, reinforces your moments of like, this is worth it. And you get these progress points along the way. So I think applying to business or podcasts, it's not like, can we get, the athletes podcast on the Super Bowl ad next month? It's like, okay, can we get one solid person on every week for 5 weeks or 10 weeks? And then it's when you look back on it, like those 6 months that you mentioned, you realize how far you've come. It's the same like goal setting within the larger goal that I think is just a mind shift to accomplish anything.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so true. And, if you can break it down, like to your point, on a granular level, 3 races within a triathlon, and then even further, like breaking out, what does 3.8 kilometers look like in that first leg of the swimming versus the last half. Typically triathlons people are doing like once a year, maybe it's like their big life goal. You're doing 5 within the span of like a year and a half, 2 years, 6 within the next couple of months. What is typically the ideal or optimal amount of rest between triathlons? Are you following that? Are you saying screw it? Like, what's the mindset on that look like?
Yeah, I think, some people are like, when did I hit my head and when am I going to wake up? Because it's pretty crazy. I think like typically people take up to, 6 weeks to 6 months to recover from an Ironman just because of the toll it takes on your body. And then, I've done 5, but previously I did 3 in 3 months. So September, October, November, where it's 3 back-to-backs. And I think there's a difference between you can race, 6 Ironmans, and then you can compete or complete 6 Ironmans. So it's kind of knowing yourself and like how much you can push yourself to go towards everything. And I think you want to give everything 100%. But to me, like this whole story and this whole like journey I'm on is so much more than crossing that finish line. It's like all the people I've met along the way, the cultures and like the remote places that I've been fortunate to go to, and like all these inspiring stories. So to me, I look at this as like a bigger journey than just the best athlete I can be. It's like, how much can I learn about myself? And I think like when you challenge yourself to challenge timelines and, take on these kind of crazy journeys, like you're just thrown in the deep end and you got to learn on the fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. What's the hardest part for you? Swimming, running, biking?
At first I would have said swimming. Like I YouTubed how to swim. Like it was pretty daunting to me to be in a pool for an hour. I swam like this. My legs just sunk to the bottom. Like I had no proper technique. And then you think you're good, and then you go into a lake or an ocean and you swallow a mouthful of salt water and your goggles get kicked off your face in a race, and you're just like, what the heck is going on here? So that's still like I'm getting used to and I'm getting better at, but it's something that hasn't really come easy to me. I think I always enjoyed running the most out of the 3, but definitely working on swimming as a weakness turning into hopefully a strength.
Yeah, that absolutely. So 3 in 3 months has got to be just, I'm trying to wrap my head around that after you said it, just even thinking in my head how sore you would be. Jordan and I did a 100-kilometer walk one day last year around after the David Goggins challenge. So it was 48K and then another 100K afterwards. So ridiculous to try and wrap our heads around that. But, you did 3 Ironman within that 3-month time span. Anything you were doing to your body, icing, heat, sauna, recovery, like what necessarily, or what was necessary there to keep performing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like being proactive is so important. So prior to a race, like not like tapering off properly, not putting excessive stress on your body leading up to the race. But after the race, like doing a lot of like stretching, deep tissue kind of work. I use like the Theragun and kind of just the rollers pretty religiously now. And I think it's like just important to listen to your body. So knowing when to like push through a workout versus when to say, this is not like helpful. This is like actually hindering me. Like I'm getting shin splints. Like this is not going to help me. But being like very intuitive with your body and knowing when to push, when not to push has been something that you just learn through time. But I think like eating properly is huge and sleeping properly is even bigger. So I think prioritizing sleep has been a big help in recovery, like especially the week after, just kind of keep your feet up and try and get 10 hours of sleep a night versus, 7 or 8 that you usually do.
Yeah. What did November's Ironman look like in comparison to September and October? Because I'm sure it got progressively harder.
Yeah. So November was a crazy one. That was South Africa. And, I just did 2 previously. The second one I did was actually a personal best of mine. So my fastest time in Chattanooga. And then the third one was in Mallorca, and those were 3 weeks apart. So pretty rigorous on my body. And then going to Africa, I was like a little bit burnt out or fatigued going into the race. So it was pretty taxing. And then actually like right after the race, I got Omicron on my, like the COVID variant on my way home. And this was just an insane story, but I think we were like, pretty much patient zero because we tested negative leaving Africa. On this plane ride connecting through Amsterdam, somebody had it on the plane. And after this 11-hour flight, we were transferring from Amsterdam back to Toronto. We were landed on the tarmac and asked to get tested. All 600 passengers. There was 2 planes, 300 passengers each. And then 60 passengers tested positive. My brother and I tested positive and had to spend 2 weeks in Amsterdam in a hotel, like quarantine hotel, just recovering. So in a way that was like a blessing because I just took a beating on my body and I had 2 weeks to pretty much like just focus on sleep, recovery, and putting myself kind of in an environment to minimize like activity or stimulus.
Yeah. How was Omicron? Were you okay? Were you like barely hanging on? Have you had the other variants?
No, so that was the first variant. I think what was scary was like because it was new, like nobody knew exactly how it would be different, and we were like tested, every day for pretty much 14 days. They took our blood work, like we were like guinea pigs in this worldwide pandemic. But luckily, and knock on wood, like my brother and I were pretty healthy. We did like some challenges just to like stay sane in this room. I think the hardest part was just being locked in a room for 14 days and not being able to leave. So I think we did a marathon, just walking, back and forth in our hotel room. I think that took 9 hours or something crazy, and just tried to like socially engage with people on Instagram or friends of ours and just kind of keep lighthearted throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, because that was right around the time we were initially supposed to chat, and then things got pushed around, I'm sure. So crazy how that happens. The year prior is when I had the original vid, and that was, again, hardest part, just 2 weeks in almost isolation, right? It's that, I think, more than anything, I think it's proven there's a reason why, people go into isolation holding cells for punishment nowadays. It's ruthless. And I think hopefully we've learned our lesson now and we won't have to do any of those lockdowns anymore. So we're finally out of it. Masks are gone today. This is the first day in Ontario. Masks are gone. Hold on. We won't make this podcast about COVID. But what else? Like your last one you've got coming up here in the next couple months. But I'd love for your past 5, to rank them 1 to 5 based on, let's first go your performance, how you felt, and then a second based on just how they were overall, whether that be the geography, the people around, the culture.
Yeah, for sure. So I think my first one, New Zealand, 2020, just before pandemic, it was March 7th. And I think that's always going to be the most special one to me because it was the first, and I invested so much kind of time, preparation, like mental energy into it. And I moved across the world. I didn't know a single person, but just made so many cool friends along the way. And I think like race day couldn't have been better. Just a perfect day weather-wise. And it was all new. So it was all like very much putting everything you learned to the test for the first time. And I think that was like the most special to me. And in terms of time, I think my goal was 12 hours, and I think I got 12:09. So I was pretty close to my goal, but it was very much a learning experience. Fast forward, pandemic hits. 10 days later, I got stuck in New Zealand on lockdown. And then I just have a lot of time to think. Like, I was like, what do I want to do? Like, do I want to do another one of these? Like, do I want to maybe like try and like see other places or other challenges in the world? And I read about this girl who completed an ultra marathon on every continent and became the youngest person to do it. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. And then I saw that, well, how many people have done that for Ironman? And it was like a handful, I think five or six people. And then I started researching and I was like, this would be a really cool opportunity to meet people and see the world. But back to your question about difficulty and just the overall experience, the next one was Tennessee. It was supposed to be Canada, but throughout this whole thing, I've had races canceled, postponed, changed, everything last minute. So just staying like mentally ready for these has been such a challenge as well. But got changed.
How do you do that? Sorry to interrupt. How have you stayed that? Because that's not an easy thing to do, man. Myself, I've fallen victim to like lockdowns and being in a negative mind state. Like, how'd you stay positive?
Yeah, I think, I got a phone case and it's pretty easy. I just wrote all in on it. I got a custom phone case, and to me, it's like, if you want to achieve anything, you have to be all in on it. And it's just this reminder to look at every time I pick up my phone, like what you're working towards. Two, I started working with a breath coach. So that's been super helpful. He's like a mindfulness guy. And every Tuesday I would go in for what's called a sound bath. And a sound bath is pretty much like a guided meditation, but they have these like Tibetan drums. So these big bowls kind of thing. And they just hit the mallet in a certain way. And it just kind of like helps you stay zen, helps you stay calm. And I found, like, to me, like, I thought originally that might be a little bit taboo, but it's just been kind of like this extra superpower, I would say, to me, to like tap into flow states while I'm training or running or racing. And I think it's something that more people should do.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. So now back to Tennessee. Now that we figured out the drums and breathing works.
So yeah, I mean, like the second one was supposed to be Canada, but I got transferred over to Chattanooga, Tennessee, which was like honestly such a cool experience for me, and a pretty unsuspecting place. Like, I would have never otherwise maybe have gone there, on my own kind of volition, but met some really cool people. And that turned out to be my, second race where I set a PB and went sub 12 hours and just felt like I executed all my learnings from the last one in a very well manner. So I was pretty happy with that. And fast forward 3 weeks later was another transfer to a European race in Mallorca. And I think that one was pretty tough to do 3 weeks after, even just like logistically getting there, settling in on my own, and then racing. I think I was pretty sore from the previous one, but I knew I had this advantage of like, I knew what to expect. I've done two now. Like, I know what this is going to take. So I was about an hour slower than what I wanted to be, but still felt like I had a pretty solid overall race. The fourth one, Africa, was pretty quick turnaround after that, 6 weeks post the third one. And that was just wild. Like, it was a crazy windstorm. It felt like a Call of Duty map. Like, there was a helicopter patrolling the water. The waves were like 6 feet tall. The pros go out and get flushed back right away. And you're watching this, and people are like literally walking out of the swim line because they're like, I don't want to do this swim. And it's just like, it's things that you just, you can't prepare for. So that was pretty gnarly to me. The bike was super windy that day and pretty undulating, like a lot of up and down hills. And then the run was just a battle. I was like, heat was getting up there. Then later on, the elements of like a rainstorm was coming through, and that was quite crazy. But to wrap up this kind of tangent, like, the hardest one for me has been this last one, the Philippines. And this is honestly probably the craziest story to date, but I found out 7 days prior to the race that I was allocated a spot to race here in the Philippines. I was scheduled for Taiwan, but they closed the borders to foreign nationals and transferred me into the Philippines race 7 days prior to the race. So I pretty much packed up. I was training okay, but I wasn't really like ready to do it in, 5 days time. So I get there with 72 hours before the race, and I got word that my bike didn't make it and it got stuck in Korea. Is getting rerouted back to Vancouver. So I had to figure out how to get a bike for this race, and luckily like called all the bike shops, managed to get a bike, get to the race start, just battling jet lag, like a new bike never used before, and then 40-degree heat. It was like humidity really took a toll on my body. And I crossed the finish line, but lost 10 pounds along the way somewhere, and pretty much went to the medic tent and had to get my vitals checked and IV'd to get back to like a healthy kind of homeostasis of like what a normal human body should take. So it was quite scary, but yeah, that was probably the most difficult, but also like rewarding in a way as well, from the journey so far.
Was it just like dehydration, lack of nutrients, combination of all of the above? Like, do you want to talk about it more? Because we don't have to, but it doesn't sound like the most amazing experience. But I'm sure there's, individuals listening who have pushed themselves far, maybe not to the point of losing 10 pounds in one event, but details?
Yeah, for sure, man. Earmuffs to people who don't want to hear, but I think like, to me, my body just kind of went into shock because of the heat, coming from Canada. It's kind of winter. Like I wasn't trained for that humidity. And then it was pretty unforgiving. There wasn't like any clouds in the sky. There was just this beating, like hot sun on you throughout the whole race. And so, I think like early on in the bike, like the swim was okay. I felt great in the swim, came out, started the bike. About like 2 hours into the bike ride, my arms were just pure red, even though I put sunscreen on, like just beating red. I'm like, this doesn't look good. I'm starting to feel it like on my neck. And they have water stations every 15 kilometers, but like it just got so hot to a point that I had to get off my bike almost every water station just to cool my body down. So I would go like dunk my head in the water, put ice cubes in my tri-suit, just to stay cool, because my body just kept overheating. Like I was sweating profusely, and I was drinking as much water as I can, is like getting in electrolytes. I had gels and I had bars. So I was like properly like putting fluids in, but just the rate that my body was sweating was like, it was too high. So kind of battled through that. But then on the run, you're out there for like almost eight hours before you start the run. And I was like, okay, I got a marathon here. The sun is still out. This is a long day. So I don't know. It just like at 10K, my body was starting to shut down. I was like kind of getting spacey, couldn't keep anything in. I was trying to eat, but like my body was rejecting everything. And it was just this like huge battle to kind of push through, and probably not the healthiest thing to do for your body, really. Like organs probably shutting down. Like, I don't know. I'm not like scientifically adept at like what was going on internally, but in that darkest time, like I don't know what it was, but there was this clear switch to me of like, you only have one thing you need to focus on, and that's getting to this finish line. And I just kind of was like, I am so far committed, like pot committed, that like I can't not drop out of the race. And it's kind of scary, but like I think 30K into the race, kind of like fell over, started vomiting, and this lady came up and she's like, I'm going to call an ambulance to get you out of this race. And I was like, no way. Like I'm so close to this thing, like kind of blacking out, but like also I just need to get through this line, like get to this finish line. And I think that it might be a bit insane, but also to me, it's like, it's so rewarding when you push yourself for a little bit further than you think you're capable of and look back on it. It's like it sucked to the moment, but now we made it together over this line, and like you're that much stronger for it.
Choosing courage over certainty. It's one of the other things that I saw on your Instagram there. And I think it's a testament to your work ethic and ability to see something through to the finish line, literally and figuratively, because, you know, I think 99.9% of people going through that probably wouldn't have continued on, but kudos to you for doing it, man, whether it was good or bad for the body. Hey, it's done now, right? And you got one more left. Because at the end of the day, if you hadn't done that, you would have been still 406, and then you got to repeat the whole process over again, and you're probably in a better state. But you know what? When you're 75% done a race like that, like you said, you got to just get through it. I'm sure even just like having your own, or not even having your own bike and having a brand new one, like that seat's got to probably be super uncomfortable. Your ass is not used to it, for lack of a better term. Like, I don't know. I can't even wrap my head around that. Like, oh man. Well, okay, let's look at the next one then. You're 5 down. Do you get nervous now at this point once you have all your gear there? Like, are you even worried about this next one now that you've been able to accomplish everything else you have prior to this?
I am actually, yeah. I think like, you know, first time or sixth time, you know, it's like the nerves are still there and the excitement's still there and the challenge is still there. So to me, like, I'm the most excited, but also nervous for this last one because I want it to be my best one yet. And I think I'm learning from, you know, the last 5 that like, I know what I need to do to execute well. Now it's putting that like process into place, but it's battling against time. It's battling against conditions. And it's battling against uncertainty. So it's like, how do you just stay focused for a short amount of time? Like, and it's like, that's what's challenging to me, but I'm pretty confident that I'm like physically able to do it. It's just like executing on game day. And what's helped is a good friend of mine, convinced him to sign up for this race. So I have some healthy competition of this is going to be his first race. And I'm so excited for him to cross that line and share the moment with him. But part of me is also like, I got to beat him, you know, like it's just this healthy competition of beating myself, but also like wanting to do well and excited to see that come to life too. So it's giving me that extra motivation to train hard.
Yeah, 100%. Having someone else there to compete with just makes it that much better. And it's brought up one of our co-connections, that being Braden Mills, who's put on some serious size. He's gotten pretty into the running game now. I know he's out there in Vancouver trying to keep up with you guys. But what does that community look like from the Ironman standpoint? Because I know there's a pretty tight-knit group out there in BC. You guys have a bit of a crew going on, but I know just everywhere in general, there's typically the athletes like to stick together. There's a community aspect to it. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think that's something that attracts me to, you know, this triathlon world is that community. And, you know, tomorrow I'm actually going for lunch with this gentleman named John Ragg and his partner, Elizabeth Modal. And he's done 256 Ironmans and holds the record for the most amount of Ironmans ever done. And she just finished her 100th Ironman. So combined, you know, they are just like superhumans. And I think like those people, you always talk to somebody, you think they're doing something crazy, then you hear about somebody in their circle that's doing something even more crazy. And so that's like a testament of like them, you know, they don't have to come and spend time with me. Like, who am I to them? Just this average kid that's like doing a couple of races, and they're like taking time out of their day to educate me on their experience, share some stories, and like hear about my goals. And I think that's like something that's pretty special. So it's been similar across the board of, you know, just in different countries that I've been to in the triathlon world. And I think the general theme is like, everybody is there to race against themselves, you know, as much as they're there to race against others. It's like, who are you and like, who are you becoming? And I think that's what's like pretty profound about the sport. What's your goal for this upcoming race? Your 6th. What's the number you're trying to hit? What are you getting? What are you aiming for? Yeah, I hope to PB. So my fastest time right now, I think, is 11 hours and 52 minutes. So my goal would to beat that time and walk away with, my best effort yet.
Okay, I like it. We'll give you a little bump when you hit that, because I'm sure you will, no doubt about it. 256, 100 from those two individuals. That's crazy. It sounds like they need to be on the Athletes podcast too. We'll have to let them know that they're welcome anytime to share their stories. But how do you prepare if you were to say, "Hey, David, 3 months from now, you're going to do an Ironman"? What's that preparation look like? How should I be training? Should I even consider it?
Yeah, I think, number one is like definitely consider it and put a date in the calendar. I think that's the hardest part. Like anyone that I talk to or have jumped on a phone with, I'm like, sign up, because people think they need to train and then sign up when they're ready. You're never going to be ready unless you sign up and have like a definitive date you're working towards. To me, I think of training in like 10-week blocks. I think that's a digestible amount of time for any goal. 2.5 months, you can kind of strategically plan out your workouts, and it gives you enough time to build up to a race. I'd say anyone would love the realm of triathlon. It doesn't have to be an Ironman, but like do a sprint, give it a try, do whatever it is. But like just the accomplishment of crossing the line and feeling like you did something new is exhilarating. And then like be disciplined, right? Like find a club if you can, find a friend that you're challenging, and show up every day, especially the days that you don't want to, because those are the days that make the most difference. But yeah, be disciplined and like give it your all for that 10 weeks. It's a short amount of time in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, especially when you consider how long we're living nowadays. What does that preparation for you look like on a case-by-case basis? Does it change? Obviously, Philippines a little warmer than, what Canada would have been. Are you changing your training regimen according to where you're going to be competing?
In a perfect world, like I would love to train, in altitude training or in heat training. But I think the reality is I'm living in Vancouver. It's pretty temperate, so the weather's pretty constant. In a perfect world, I would like to go to a place for a little bit longer to experience the culture and like kind of like warm up to what it would actually feel like. Like Philippines was kind of a one-off, but I think like previously, like want to be at a race probably a week before, just to kind of settle into what the temperature feels like, what the course is like, literally go and swim in the water you're going to swim in, bike the road you're going to bike on, and like run the run you're going to run on. But to me, training is like staying mentally focused, like working on breath work, staying like mentally sharp is such an underrated workout. I think like a lot of people think about the swimming, the biking, and the running, but then they get in their head of, I can't do this, or I'm not fit enough, or I'm not ready, and they'll like drop out of the race. Or if they get to a challenging part, they'll maybe like ease up on themselves when it gets tough. So I think doing things that will actually callous your mind a little bit, like cold plunges has been a big one that I do outside of training, just because I think it heightens your senses, it makes you uncomfortable, and it helps you get comfortable with that uncomfortableness.
Dude, I can't tell people enough how positive cold plunges can affect your life. It's crazy. I probably say it too much, but I'll keep saying it until people jump in at least once, because it's crazy the benefits, both physical, mental, and just for your ability on your own to have the confidence to say, I can go do that, no problem. It's like, that doesn't seem intimidating at that point. I know you touched on it previously before we started recording, but you said you have some future goals that you didn't necessarily want to get into on too deep a level, but do you want to maybe scratch the surface, peel one layer back for those listening, and share so that next time we jump on, we can say, yeah, we checked that box, no problem?
Yeah, sure, man. I think without getting any details away, I think the natural question's what's after the sixth continent, and there's really only one other continent on the map. So I'll leave it at that, but there's going to be an adventure heading that way towards Antarctica. And yeah, that's what I'm excited about after this journey. But just want to stay focused for the next couple months and do the 6 on the 6 before I kind of get into that.
And you'll be doing it 6 years prior to the last person, or 6 years before the last person who was 31, right? So 6 years ahead. It's pretty legit. You gotta like that. I feel like you should brand that, include that somewhere, you know.
Born in the 6 from Toronto.
Oh, there you go. 6 in the 6 from the 6. There you go. Something like that. We'll work on that after this. Hey, Connor, where can people find you on social media? I can't thank you enough for coming on, but I also want to make sure people know they can find you, contact you, get in touch if they want to support, follow along your journey.
Yeah. I think Instagram, just at Connor.Emeny, is probably the best place for now. And if they want to email me, if they're not on Instagram, emeny.connor@gmail.com. And yeah, anyone that's looking for a chat, I'm always happy to talk through any journey, or if you're on your own journey and are thinking about triathlon in any regard, like feel free to shoot me a message.
Dope. Hey, the way we wrap up every episode is by asking our guests what their biggest piece of advice to the next generation of athletes would be. Given that you're 5 of 6 complete, you got one more to go in the next couple months, Antarctica on the way. Connor, what's your biggest piece of advice for that next gen?
Twofold. Number 1, dream big. Number 2 is focus on your life resume and not your paper resume. I think, school and everything is great, but the more life experience you can get, the better off you'll be.
Mic drop. That's it. Nice. Hey, Connor, I can't thank you enough for coming on the Athletes Podcast. Episode 117. Crazy. We'll have you again in the future. Once you get that number 6 Antarctica done, we'll have some fun. Appreciate you, man.
Man, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, folks, for tuning into the 120th episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring Connor Emeny. Simply an incredible individual who's performing at the highest level possible. 6 continents, crazy story. Give him a follow along during his journey. I can't wait to see what the next couple months have in store, and really what the next couple of years for that matter, because I know he's got some other projects in the works. So it's an exciting time to be a Connor Emeny fan. For those who are Athletes Podcast fans, we really appreciate your support. If you can continue to like, comment, subscribe, share this show with other people, we really appreciate it. Hope you're having a great day. Enjoy the rest of it. Take care. Bye.